Now, Rock Talk with Mitch Lafon.
All right, Jeremy, number 2, go ahead and launch us off and get this party started.
Well, listen, My Own Worst Enemy, the big song over 21 years ago after its initial release. I mean, certified double platinum. It's also the subject of a 4-part documentary podcast that we're going to talk all about. Welcome to the show, Jeremy Popoff from Lit. There he is, everybody.
Yeah. What's up, guys?
What's happening, man?
The great Lit.
It's so funny. My hair's all over the place. I just finished getting done with my physical therapist. When you guys are on the road and stuff, how do you guys take care of your bodies? And do you guys go for massages and stuff, or?
I mean, we wouldn't pass on one if we could get one. Some of the bigger, like nicer festivals will have someone running around backstage giving massages and stuff. But man, honestly, everyone kind of has their own little regimen, and usually the only thing I do is stretch a little bit and have a couple of Tito's and Sprite Zeros, and I'm good to go.
That's the tour prep. But everybody talks about that. Oh, I have to be in shape for the tour. I have to be in shape for the road. Like, being not in shape, I guess it would have an effect on your body. Like,
I mean, we go pretty aggro on stage, so the 75 minutes that we're on stage is a workout. I mean, we're drenched with sweat when we walk off the stage, and I mean,
that's really the taking care of yourself part, being on stage. That is the workout.
Yeah. I don't know. Somebody, I forget who made this quote, but somebody said, talking about like what they get paid, to play. And they said, we don't get paid to play. We get paid for the 22 and a half hours a day that we have to travel and deal with all the other bullshit. That's what we get paid for. The show is free.
The show is fun.
It's funny you say that, because it's kind of like that in radio. I mean, the preparation is pretty much all the work. The performance is not. That's not even the work part of it. It really is the preparing and getting ready and being set and ready to go. The performance part of it. That's just the fun. I don't even consider like I get paid for the performance in a way. It's all the prep.
Totally.
Let me just quickly ask you this, or I'll just mention this before I ask you this. First of all, since we're talking live shows, I saw Lit a couple of times. Once with Handsome Devil, and then another time with Buck Cherry, and who else was on there? POD. That was just fantastic. It was 4 bands. It was the greatest show I saw. What was it? Summer of 2018? Was it?
I think
2019.
That's about right.
Man, that was so good. But let's get into My Worst Enemy. Talk to me about having that song hit, because at the end of the 90s, it was a whole new world. All our Poisons and Warrants had blown up. Even their Nirvana thing had sort of come to an end, come and gone. What was it like to get on radio, and how hard was it to get a song noticed? And then here we are, whatever, 200 streams later, or whatever the... What is the actual thing here?
200
million streams later. I mean, talk to me about that getting that on the radio.
I mean, other than writing the song, we had very little to do with it getting on the radio. We had some early idea that there was going to be a couple stations that were going to play it. They had heard the demo version of it, and they were excited to put it on. So when we were recording it for the record, we kind of already knew it was going to be the first single, and we knew that there was going to at least be a couple stations that would give it a shot. But what ended up happening with it was completely just mind-boggling, nothing that you could ever plan for. And honestly, not even really anything you could even dream about. Like no kid sitting around going, man, I hope I can have a #1 song for 11 weeks straight. It's not even on the list, it's just like, man, I hope I can go play, I hope I can go on the road and go on tour and maybe open up for somebody cool. And it would be neat to hear my song on the radio. That's kind of as far forward as you're thinking about it. And then on top of that, then it's like, if you would have asked me 20 years ago, like, where do you think this song's going to be 20 years from now? I'd be like, fuck.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't even know where I'm going to be 20 years from now. So the fact that it's still getting played as much as it gets played, it's just crazy.
Well, it's funny, talking about that song. I mean, just talk about the writing of the song first off, because that is one of the most iconic guitar licks of all time. As soon as you hear the ban, you know what song it is. Talk about how did you come up with that riff and like where did that come from? Were you just sitting there and it happened, or?
Yeah, man, kind of. First of all, one of the reasons I started playing guitar in the first place, or actually one of the reasons I started writing songs in the first place, was because I wasn't good enough on the guitar to like play an entire Judas Priest song from front to back, or a Iron
Play
Maiden song.
Eruption.
Yeah, I couldn't play Eruption. I could play like the beginning of You Really Got Me. That was about it.
Right.
So I figure like, the only way I'm going to really be able to get through a whole song is if I write my own song. And I come from kind of a simple, the first riffs I ever learned on guitar were like, Smoke on the Water and Crazy Train and
the less is more kind of riffs.
Yeah, and just iconic riffs that start songs. And that was kind of and I was always fascinated with simple riffs and simple like Back in Black.
Or you listen to Heartbreaker. I mean, it's Zeppelin. All
I was
those
always
riffs.
trying to come up with simple riffs that kind of just rubbed and rocked, and that one was just happened to be one of them. It just felt, And the funny thing is, and I've told this story many times, but every label passed on My Own Worst Enemy.
Wow.
All the labels that all our peers were on, the president of Interscope Records walked out of our showcase during My Own Worst Enemy.
Wow.
And, I mean, you name the label, they passed.
So that song actually was your worst enemy because it was emptying rooms.
Yeah. It was just clearing the room out. When that dude walked out of our showcase, we were playing at like 4:00 in the afternoon at the Viper Room. And we were only playing 5 songs, and I think Enemy was song 3. And he walked out the side door.
So it couldn't be seen? Oh, I'm out of here.
Man.
If you're familiar with the Viper Room, there's a door right next to the stage that goes out onto Sunset Boulevard.
Yep.
And when he walked out, the sunlight just came shooting into the club.
Oh,
and just,
no.
like, wrecked the whole vibe. And everybody was like, it was one of those things where we were like, what a dick.
Yeah. Was that Jimmy Iovine?
No, it was Tom Wally.
Okay.
Does he still work in the business?
I have no idea, but I think so. He's kind of one of those lifer guys, executive guys. But what the funny thing is we were like, what a dick move that was. Unless he did it to psych out the other A&R guys there, and maybe he's going to call us later and offer us a record deal, and maybe he'll tell that story one day, like, oh, I pretended like I hated him, and then I signed, But no,
it was just a big mind fuck.
That didn't happen. He just fucking dicked out on us that day and ruined our showcase. But and then I think it was after that, then we stopped showcasing in LA for labels. We would make them come to Anaheim and sweat it out with us in our warehouse,
in our backyard,
on home turf,
like Marlboros and natural lights.
Right. I mean, that's intimidating right off the bat. You have to be there to basically, it's basically a dick measuring contest between you and all the other bands and stuff, and you're trying to show them off what you got. But then it's like a guy like that, obviously that'll be soul crushing for somebody like in that position to walk out when you're playing what you think is probably, one of your better songs. And it's like, that's just bullshit,
Well, Miserable was one of the songs too. The 5 songs that we played that day, I mean, 4 of them were on A Place in the Sun. It's a nerve wrack. I don't envy any band that's showcasing for any executive anywhere in the world, because it's the most nerve-wracking thing, because you don't, again, it's one of those things, you're not sitting there as a kid dreaming of the day that you could go impress a guy in a suit. It's like that was not on my list of dreams.
I gotta say, I've only seen one showcase in my life, and it was Mandy Moore with Jason Hook on guitar. It was like, hey, Jason.
Oh wow.
Jason ended up in Five Finger Death Punch.
Yeah.
I just want to take us to the present. You do have a new album that you're working on. You've been working with different songwriters. The last one, These Are the Days, had a bit more country feel to it, more of a country rock or a modern country feel to it. is that where you want to go with the band, or do you want to get back to the early days and be the My Worst Enemy band?
The new record is old school lit. We
Okay.
went back to
Nice.
a place that we when we kind of started the writing process. I mean, we said it was the beginning of the lockdown. We were still trying to get our footing and how that world was going to work for us, and with Zooms and all that. But we purposely set out to put our heads in the space that they were in the late 90s and early 2000s, and we changed what we were listening to around the house, and we started listening
Really?
to even old lit demos, and just really trying to get back to that place, because we knew we didn't want to write anything about politics or anything about viruses, or being locked up in a
Lockdown.
house.
Like everybody else is writing about.
Let me just take up on that for a second. As you got older, did you just sort of forget what lit was? Did you sort of forget who you were as a band and say, hey, we got to go back and study us?
Well, AJ and I live in Nashville now. We've been coming to Nashville for a lot of years.
Right.
We do love country music, and we had to refocus our attention to what lit meant to us and what we felt like it meant to our fans. And I think putting These Are the Days out was confusing a little bit to some of the, some of our fans loved that record, and they found their own songs on there that meant something to them. And then there were other fans that were just like, oh, country sucks, and then there were country fans that liked the record, but then when they found out it was lit, they're like, wait, the cars in the front yard guys. So
Couldn't win.
We accepted that, and we realized, like, lit is a thing to people that represents a certain thing, and we need to be that. And not that we can't grow, and not that we can't explore. We got away with it. We made a country record. They let us do it, and we're still alive to tell the story.
Well,
right.
But it almost makes it cooler now, because I don't think it would be. I think when you hear shit. Sorry, guys.
No worries.
I was going to say, I think the cool thing about lit is that, for a small period of time, there was this thing about pop punk that wasn't cool anymore. And now with Travis Barker with his label, and he's bringing out guys like Jaden and Modson and Gradson, and even Avril Lavigne coming back, and Machine Gun Kelly is waving the flag for the whole scene, really, in this day and age, which is kind of sad. And then you got a band like Lit, who are like the OG guys in that scene. I mean, you guys should be the ones bringing back the pop punk, and I think now is the time for Lit to, drop a banger like that.
Well, I think you'll hear, when you hear this record, I do think I think we could have put this record out right in between A Place in the Sun and Atomic, and it would have been
smash.
But we did, we worked with a couple guys here in Nashville, Carlo and Eric, who produced the record with us, and they brought a young, fresh production approach to it. So
nice.
we kept the tires on the road heading down towards, old school lit, and they kept us challenged with new school approaches and dynamics and sounds. And so, yeah, man, we'll see. I think people are going to be stoked. I think and maybe MGK will take us out on the road with us.
That'd be awesome.
The first single, yeah, is that just a single while we wait for the album, or is it a single from the album, and is it indicative of what fans can expect?
It is. It's on the record.
Okay.
And we did a video for it, kind of an old school throwback to kind of like the videos we used to love.
Yeah, I watched it. It was fantastic. Pool party, the whole effing thing.
Yeah. And, I think there's going to be another single that will come out probably February, and then we'll drop a third single in the spring when the album comes out. So we kind of are doing things a little bit backwards these days, I guess. And before, it was like you throw, your your record out and your first single out, and then you kind of live and die by how that one does.
Right.
And now it's kind of like you put a few out, and then the record, we kind of like are describing it as more of a yearbook. Like, you know, you get your high school yearbook on the last day of school, not the first day of school, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
So we'll get some songs out and some stories out before we drop the whole thing. And
Well, we talk to a lot of artists, and we always ask them that. I mean, is it viable to even put out a full collection of music these days? Like, can't you just put out maybe like 4 songs in the EP and say, here you go, there's just some new songs, but come catch us on the road, and we're going to be playing a mixture of the old stuff and the new stuff. Like, is it worth it to still put out the collection, or?
I think, you know, we're a band that's always made albums that had a beginning, a middle, and end, and had, you know, we sit in the mastering room and we count in between songs, like, you know, 1,000, 2, 1,000 now, you know, and you know, and then some songs just have a cut at the end, and some crossfade into the next song or whatever. And we've always treated our albums as like a set list, you know, and so for us, it's important. Now, whether or not people are buying physical copies of albums anymore, probably not so much. But I do think if you are one of those people that do,
that's me.
You'll put the needle on the vinyl, and it'll take you on a ride. It's not going to just be 12 digital songs with exactly the same amount of seconds in between each song,
right?
You know. And I loved what Adele did recently with the whole shuffle feature on her record. I thought that was amazing that they took that off for her, because it's true. It's you know, the last thing you want to do is put so much thought into the way an album rolls out, and then, you know, some random shuffle play, and it just throws you into song 8, which is, you know, kind of in a way part of the end of song 7 and the beginning of song 9, and you want it to be context, you know.
Maybe there was an interlude between the two, and, you know, you didn't get the musical piece. Or
see,
I think that's
you would both hate me because I make playlists. I never listen to albums as they're made. I cut stuff up and put them in playlists, and I have Metallica going into Genesis and Genesis going into Lit.
No, I mean, I do the same thing, but then I also love, usually when my wife's not around, then I'll throw one of my old vinyl records on and listen to that thing, you know,
blasting like a virgin.
Yeah, and dancing around the house, you know. No one's watching.
I want to talk about, because you just said something really interesting, you know, working with some new producers that are giving you more of a modern approach to production. Just to take us back to My Own Worst Enemy and that guitar tone, do you remember your guitar rig that you were using to create that tone? Because it's a really cool guitar tone.
Thanks, man. I still have it. I still, the funny thing is about that tone, and it was a heavy metal tone. In fact, there was a heavy metal band from the 80s called Leatherwolf. They were an Orange County band. Really, if you're into metal, Leatherwolf, the first 2 albums are a fucking killer.
Yeah.
Leatherwolf.
Yeah.
I bought
old school 80s, my friend.
Yeah, and I actually bought, Kerry Howe was one of the guitar players, and I bought one of his Marshalls that he used on the early Leatherwolf records, and he was the one who told me to get the yellow Boss SD1 Super Overdrive pedal to go with it.
Oh yeah,
that combination of a Marshall JMP amp with a Boss SD1 Overdrive pedal has been my formula for 30 years. And it was out of style, then it was in style, then it was out of style, then it was, you know, then it was cool again. And then when Enemy came out and that riff was on the modern rock radio, people were like, wow, that guitar tone is, you know, but I mean, that same damn guitar tone, I mean, you could play fucking Lay It Down from Rat and it would sound killer.
Absolutely.
It's a heavy metal tone that I've just had since I was a kid, and still to this day. I mean, I still have that amp. I've got several of them, and I take them on the road, and I took them in the studio and modeled them for my Kemper, so I can have I have that sound safely stored digitally now, and
forever and ever.
Forever and ever.
By the way, Jeremy, the one on the bottom there is the gearhead, and when you're talking about gear, I'm just looking at his face, and he's like, "Oh, this is so good. This
Yeah, because Mitch doesn't like it. Mitch isn't a musician. He's just like a casual fan that knows nothing. He just likes to listen to the songs and could care less about your guitars and your pedal boards and everything. But I'm the gear slut because I love all this shit. I'm a musician too, so
All that matters is a good singer. If you got a good singer, the rest is irrelevant.
yeah, yeah. But talking about that guitar tone really quickly, because I was just recently re-listening to it, and there's such a cool compression aspect to the tone. Like at the beginning, it almost has like a like it's got like I don't know. It's like in the attack. It's a combination of the attack they use and maybe the way they mixed it. Like, was there any like secret sauce that was put on that tone at all, or?
Man, it was. Well, I did have a couple of amps chained on that record. I know I was borrowing. Steve Vai let me borrow his Bogner Ecstasy head.
Wow.
I had that set up. A half stack set up. I had my Marshall half stack set up, and then I had two other Marshalls. And we would just sort of alternate and kind of blend whatever sounded the best. And then I was using, I discovered in the studio the Seymour Duncan Trembucker pickup.
Oh yeah.
I think they call it something else now, but they still make them. And all my guitars have that pickup in there. And in the studio, I kind of found that it reminded me of it was somewhere between a Strat and a Les Paul. It wasn't, wasn't full on Les Paul and it wasn't full on Strat. It sat nicely in the middle, and I just have always loved the sound of that pickup. But honestly, you give me any guitar with a Trembucker in it and a Marshall and a SD1, and I'll have that tone.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of I think they still make the Trembucker Seymour Duncan. It could just be a JB now, or something like that. But yeah,
I'm getting a Strat made right now with one in it, but they called it something different. But it's the same, same idea, same square.
Because they have the Trembuckers versus the Humbuckers, but the Trembucker's just like F space for like a Floyd Rose or whatever it might be. So,
well, there you go.
Yeah.
Let me just bring you back to the podcast for a second. Talk to me about the concept of these 4 shows, and is it something that you want to get into more, where you're going to talk about the whole album or talk about a new album? You want to make a podcast series for, here's our new album, here's the album where we went country, or you just want to do these 4 and you're like, all right, I'm done. 4 is enough.
Well, we were approached to do this podcast. Actually, we were approached originally to do a documentary, and the podcast sort of became this audio documentary of, we are in it, we're interviewed in it, and so we're a part of it. And obviously it's talking about us and our story, but we're just guests on this podcast that's narrated by somebody who really did his homework. He does an amazing job. We had no idea who he was going to contact. And so he interviews, he talks with Adrian from No Doubt and Noodles from Offspring, talks to our old A&R guy. He talks to our old manager. He talks to other, peers and, a professor from some college of music, and the person who picked the music for the Rock Band, video game and stuff like that. And he really, and it started out, I don't think it was intended to be 4 episodes. I think it was going to be 1 or 2, and it turned into this thing. And it may still be a documentary, but it really is it's a story of the song, but it really is a story of 4 kids that just didn't take no for an answer and just were, gluttons for punishment, but believed in what we were doing and just never quit, and then this song happened to us, and it was like, life-changing, but also super like validating, that for 10 years just getting, knocked down and knocked down and knocked down, and then getting back up and just keep going. And then, all right, guys, here, bam.
Yeah.
Here's the keys to the kingdom,
Did you listen to the podcast and like be like, oh no, you know what? Hey, he totally got that wrong. Or was it like band sanctioned and you approved everything before it went out?
We didn't approve anything before it went out. In fact, almost on purpose, we didn't want to, we're like, look, this isn't our album. This isn't a song that we're mixing. This is somebody else's
right. Baby.
Yeah, but don't
And
you
we
want the
didn't
correct
want
information out there? It
micromanage
could be fake news, you know?
The funny part, and I still haven't heard the entire thing, but I was listening to one segment of it, and there's a songwriter, I can't think of his name right now, but apparently he's had a bunch of huge hit songs, and he was talking about it like, you know, in this one part they could have went here, but instead they went there, and it was a really like smart decision, you know, and he kind of like analyzed it in a way coming from a smart songwriter perspective. And
Right.
I was like, and I was kind of laughing because I was like, that was completely not intended. That was not a strategy. We didn't know what the hell we were doing. And that's just how it worked.
Yeah.
That's funny. Let me ask you this. You have a bunch of people that have covered the song. Kelly Clarkson, Jimmy Fallon, and then Post Malone, who is one of the hottest artists around of the last at least 2-3 years, if not longer. What's it like when those people pick up on the song and say, you know what? This is such a great song, such an iconic song, that we got to give it a go.
I saw a video 2 or 3 weeks ago with Machine Gun Kelly singing it at a party or something, and he was just like rocking out to it. And when Post did it, and we're big fans of his, you know, I think he's just
he's a talent.
Dude's
really
great.
Talented guy, total rock and roll guy. Really, I've heard AJ actually did something with him and hung out with him backstage. Said he was a real sweetheart of a guy.
Well, get him on the show for us.
Well, you know, it's interesting, and we go into this on the podcast because when I first started coming to Nashville, and it was probably 2005, I was coming because I was kind of disenchanted with rock, and I wasn't hearing anything that was inspiring me. Guitars were starting to disappear from rock, and it just got a little weird. And so I was seeking something else to like satisfy my, you know, so I was hoping something was gonna like inspire me creatively, and Nashville did that. But I was worried about rock and roll and the next generation of kids. And I remember thinking like, you know, who's gonna write the next Smoke on the Water or the next Crazy Train? What's happening right now that's gonna make a kid ask for a Les Paul for Christmas? And there wasn't any. And then this video game comes out, and you know, and kids and parents and families across the world are standing in front of their TV pretending to play these songs on guitar. And I had my son at the time was probably 5, you know, and he's playing Creep by Radiohead, and he's playing Mine Worst Enemy by Lit and beating me at it, you know, on expert level.
Nice.
Like, you little shit, I wrote this. But
oh, that's funny.
But I remember thinking, this is going to be the way rock music and guitars are going to survive this wave of guitar-free music. And anyways, long story short, I just read something recently that Post Malone said in an interview that that's what made him want to make music was the frickin' Rock Band video game, you know, and Guitar Hero. That's what made him want to play guitar. And I'm like, there you go. I you know, it was a hunch back then, but it's like I really attribute My Worst Enemy's longevity to that other next generation of kids that were inspired, you know, by that.
Do you want to work with Post?
Fuck yeah.
Yeah, because his collaboration with Ozzy, I know Ozzy purists are all, it's amazing. I love it.
Yeah, I love that. And Andrew Watt, one hell of a producer. I mean, geez.
Andrew Watt, not only a great producer, a great guitarist. Man, what a talent that guy is. Wow. There we go.
Well, yeah, Jeremy, it was great to talk to you, man. This was really cool.
We've said it all. And, you know, let's get you hooked up with all those writers, and let's get you getting some great Styx-sounding Lit songs written.
I want to hook up with those. I need to give old Jimbo a shout, and especially once we hit the road, because I would love to get in a room with him once we get to Chicago and
be great
feel
time.
the love.
What are the tour plans?
We have, well, we're doing the Monsters of Rock cruise,
Nice.
Cool.
which we're excited about. We love so many of the bands that are on there, bands we grew up listening to, and it's cool to be
Who's on there with you?
included.
Like Danger Danger and Faster Pussycat and
Probably Alice Cooper is headlining. I know Skid Row's on it. I haven't seen the lineup in a while, but yeah, just a ton of
Kiefer.
a ton of
Tom
old-
Kiefer. Look at
Tom
that.
Kiefer, there you go.
It's the primary wave boat. It's perfect. We love it.
Yeah.
But that'll be cool. We're doing the UK with Bowling for Soup early next year,
Wow.
and
Nice.
we're doing and we're working on a lit tour for spring and summer.
Yeah, I don't know how the package treated you, the Alien Ant Farm and Buck Cherry, but if that package went out again, I'd be there in a second because I was just 4 bands that were on fire that night. I mean,
it was a fun tour.
they made Watertown, New York exciting. Let's put it that way.
And that's hard to do.
I think when a lineup like that, you get 3 or 4 solid live bands together, everyone kind of pushes each other to deliver a little more each night, which is always good,
Yeah, it was really good.
Totally.
Well, there you go. We've said it all, and we look forward to the album. The album's coming out, you said, in March, right?
The album comes out in spring is all I know. So hopefully, my hunch is it's probably gonna be more like April or May.
Nice.
But along the way, it'll be, we'll be dropping new music like every couple of months until then, and tidbits and stuff like the Enemy podcast, and our home video, which we haven't even announced this yet, but the home video it was a very limited release that we did back in the day. That is now on all the streaming stuff on TV. So it's called Lit All Access, and it's a pretty cool, in the spirit of the old home videos that we used to love to watch when we were kids. It's kind of what we designed it after, and it covers a lot of what the podcast covers and a lot of the history, and it shows us playing in front of 6 people in Cincinnati and in '98, and then it shows us playing in front of 60,000 people a year later, and it kind of everything in between. It's pretty neat.
Jeez.
So I think over the next few months we're gonna do our best to tee up the new stuff and kind of remind people who we are and what we did, and
There we go. Are you going to dedicate the new album to the guy that walked out on you in the Viper Room?
No, we're over that. We're over that right now.
I'm not so sure.
We harbor no ill.
No grudges.
No grudges. All right. Well, then just
All
dedicate it to me and Jeremy. We'll be good. Thank you, sir. Always a pleasure. We do spend our time texting to each other, so it's actually nice to see you for a change.
Yeah, man.
But, there you go.
Appreciate it,
And
brother.
that night in Watertown, and I'll finish on this. My daughter came along and with a friend, and Jeremy went out of his way to make them feel comfortable. Gatorade, whatever they wanted, T-shirts, the whole thing. So thank you for that. That was a honorable and pleasant thing to do. Didn't have to do it, but there you go. And she loved it and hasn't forgotten that memory. So thank you.
Tell her I said hello.
I will. Absolutely.
There you
Thank you,
go.
sir. Merci.
You too.
All right. See you later.
Cheers. Let me hit, there you go.